Hey, this is Chad Roberts from RPG Geek. We're talking with Joe Goodman here from Goodman Games. He's showing us Dungeon Crawl Classics. Joe, tell us about Dungeon Crawl Classics for the folks at home who have not heard of this or never played it.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Goodman from Goodman Games. We're best known for the Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game. This originally started as a line of adventure modules, and at this point, I think it's probably one of the top 5 best-selling RPG brands of all time. We're coming up on 500,000 copies sold.
Wow.
The core rulebook itself came out in 2012 and is about to go into its 7th printing. The game system itself is something that will appeal to you, whether you're old school or new school, young or old. We have a lot of folks now who are the older generation parents playing with their younger generation children, and it really crosses all the boundaries. But DCC RPG is just a fast, easy way to role play, and also sort of touch a lot of things that a lot of people like. One of those things is, as you can see as you flip through the pages, classic art.
Yeah.
We have an approach to art which is, I believe in physical manifestation of art. I'm not a big fan of digital, for example.
Yeah.
So every piece of art in here has an original piece of art that was
It reminds me a lot of that old Errol Otis art, you know?
That's actually an Errol Otis picture. That makes exactly why. Yeah, so I actually worked with a lot of the old TSR artists, as well as modern artists who evoke that classic style. That's a big part of it for a lot of people. But it goes further than that. The game itself is grounded in what's called Appendix N. Are you familiar with Appendix N? Let me show you some examples, and I'm going to put these on here.
Yeah.
So this looks like a book, right? You're probably thinking, why is he bringing paperback novels here? Well, if you go back and look at the Dungeon Master's Guide, the 1979 edition that Gary Gygax wrote for AD&D, it has a series of appendices at the back. One of them is called Appendix N. Appendix N is the list of fiction that Gary Gygax read to inspire him to create D&D. And there were other influences as well, and of course Dave Arneson was also involved, as well as other people. But if you go back and reread those original sources, you find out, for example, that polychromatic spray was not something that Gary Gygax made up. It was actually something that Jack Vance put in one of his novels in the 50s. Much of what we consider to be D&D is actually derived from essentially pulp fiction from the early 20th century. These are some of those books. So what I did was I went back, reviewed Appendix N, I reread every one of those books. This took me several years. And what was missing from my game was, I don't know what to call it, but it was that sense of wonder from when I was a child, when you fought this skeleton and you didn't know it had 8 hit points or you can only use piercing weapons. It was just like, oh my god, this thing's gonna kill me, what do I do?
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is create a game that had that sense of wonder still in it. So I reread all of Appendix N, this took a while. I started with the base foundation of 3rd edition D&D, which I particularly like. But in my mind, that edition got bogged down by prestige classes and feats and skills, and it just got complicated.
How many splat books came after that?
Yeah, exactly. So I started with that base, which Gygax didn't have access to, right? There was a lot of game system evolution from 1974 into the present. And then I applied that base to this body of literature. And in my mind, what I was trying to do is rebuild D&D from the foundation up. Then, of course, the way you express it in book form and the art and the layout and so on should evoke for most people a very classic feel, even though it's a modern system. But I wanted to create a way to actually evoke the wonders of this literature in the game. So, for example, when you read Appendix N, the way they cast magic is not scientific. It's not mathematical, actually, except for one author. But for the rest of them, it's not. It's really variable and random. So the way the magic system works, for example, is you roll a die, you make a spell check, then there's a series of tables. And when you cast Magic Missile right now, it might be like a single crossbow bolt of force. You cast it 10 minutes from now, it might be 30 small darts. So the magic is truly variable. Then the way you cast it will be different from how I cast it, because every caster has his own unique elements of casting. That's just one of the variations, but for many people who play this, it will feel at once familiar and the way it felt when you were 7 years old and saw that D4 and were like, how the heck do I roll this thing? That's how it comes across.
That's what it needs to be.
Yeah. I also happen to like weird dice. So we use the D5, the D7, the D14, the D16, the D24, and the D30.
Lou Zocchi must love it.
Actually, yeah. Yes, I like Lou. I like game science.
Yeah.
We use all the classic dice as well as the new suite of dice, so it'll feel like something fresh and new.
It's not just the book there. You've got a literal cavalcade of adventures to go along with it. See, there's a whole big line. Let's take a look. You've got tons of adventures, and Joe's got, look at all these adventures he's got for him, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and actually, I should tell you something here. I had an experience as a child, right? I won't say the game, but there's a game I liked. They came out with the 2nd edition, and then all my 1st edition was invalidated. And, we all have our traumatic experiences as children. I don't want to be that guy. So the way DCC works is you buy this one core rulebook. You will never have to buy another book. There's no monster manual. There's no Dungeon Master's Guide. There's no player's handbook. There's no splat books. There's no source books. There's no supplements. There's none of that. Instead, there's lots of adventures, enough adventures to power your campaign for as long as you like. So if you come to our booth right now, we have 30 linear feet of racks of adventures. but you see right here some of them. At this point, they're people keep buying them. So like this is the 4th printing of Sailors on the Starless Sea, which is one of the most popular of the adventures. And you know, I work with an artist. I work with a lot of great artists, and you can see the evocative nature of the art, and that's something that we try to sort of bring up. You know, we bring the adventures to life when we pick them up.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so, if people are now interested in it, if they didn't know it before, where do they go, like online, to find more about it? Other, if they don't have like a local game store or anything
Sure.
like that.
I mean, I'd say first go to your local game store.
Right.
You guys have probably heard of Free RPG Day. I actually created that along with my friend Alden.
Oh, wow,
Anderson.
really?
And I was the first publisher to ever participate, and we have participated every year ever since. We were actually 50% of the contents for the very first year just to kick it off.
Oh, cool.
So find a local game store, go to freerpgday.com to find a lot of the best retailers in America who support RPGs.
Yeah.
If you can't find a local game store, you can come to our website. Of course, there's many places online.
What website is that?
Goodman-games.com.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you a couple more things, then I'll be done.
All right.
So I showed you Appendix N, for example, Roger Zelazny or Philip Jose Farmer. I'm a big fan of vintage books. We often do a lot of con specials. So I happen to have here a couple of the con specials here. You may recognize some of these covers because here at the con we have vintage covers for existing modules.
Oh,
This is just for kicks, but if you're at Gen Con, come by booth 117. These are con specials.
Right.
2 last things to tell you about. Of course, I love classic fantasy literature. Goodman Games is now publishing a magazine called Tales from the Magician's Skull, which you can purchase at our booth.
Yep.
And this is classic literature with some rules applied. The last thing to tell you about, because we are big fans
Whoa.
of classic RPG material,
Wow.
we have an arrangement with Wizards of the Coast to republish classic D&D modules converted to 5th edition. So what you see here, it's called Into the Borderlands.
That is
It's the
amazing.
first of a series. I think it. And it actually, and you can see the blue covers here.
This is
the
my
blue maps.
favorite. This is my favorite module of all time.
Yeah,
This
well, that's
series.
awesome. I hear that a lot. Yeah. So this reprints B1 and B2 in Search of Adventure and Keep on the Borderlands. We have reprints of the originals, scanned and restored. And what most people don't realize is that Wizards of the Coast actually changed them from one printing to the next, which I did too, just because I love the idea. But there were 6 or 7 illustrations swapped out from the early printings of Keep on the Borderlands to the later ones. So we've actually tracked down multiple printings of each one and scanned and restored them. So you'll find those original printings in here. Then you have a 5th edition conversion. You have commentary from many well-known names in the industry, including Mike Earls and Luke Gygax and Mike Carr. And then, of course, some new material that fleshes out some of the surrounding area around the keep. This is actually one of our all-time bestsellers. It's been very popular.
Wow, I can see why. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
And we're announcing the next release in the series actually tonight at our seminar. I can't tell you, but come by my booth tomorrow and I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a wealth of information. This has been a treat, really.
I'm glad.
It has.
Thank you. Thank you for
And so,
inviting
thank
me.
you, Joe. And this has been Joe Goodman from Goodman Games
Hey,
here at
everybody.
Gen Con. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thanks for
you.
inviting me.